In this first part of the session, so these are our learning outcomes. So at the end of in this particular sessions, the participants will be able to provide the definition of a rubric and explain its benefits, identify situations in which the rubrics are useful, describe various types of rubrics, demonstrate skills in designing rubrics, and they will be able to use technology to apply the rubrics. Right? And yesterday, we have seen that we need to have various types of assessment methods when we want to calculate the CO attainment or PO attainment. So we first need the assessment scores. So that assessment is done by various kinds of methods, which can be direct or as well as indirect. So broadly, we can classify our assessment methods into these three categories. That we first classification is we can classify our assessment methods as selection and supply type. So in this, we basically ask the students to select the right answer like MCQ, or in the supply type we have fill in the blanks or short answer. So where the students have to basically write the answer. Okay, and these are mainly maybe from the question paper. So that part will I will be discussing as a separate part of this session. And then there are other type of assessment. We ask the students to develop a product. That product can be a model, or it can be a report, or it can be a paper, or we can ask the student to write a essay, that kind of thing. So basically, a product means after basically attempting that activity, student will submit that particular result of that activity. It may be in the form of physical model or some kind of report thesis like that. And another third category is we want to assess the students when they are performing something. So like they are doing the experiment. So we want to evaluate the student during the experiments, or they're delivering the presentation, they are participating in debate, or we are interested in evaluating the skills or attitude, behavior of the student during the performance. So these are the three major categories. And basically we are required to award scores when students are performing these some kind of activities, or they are going through the assessment either of this selection and supply type, or they are we want to do the assessment using product or performance. Okay, so when we are dealing with selection or supply type items, so it's very easy to assign points or scores or marks based on the correct answers, because we know the correct answer, and in short answer questions or fill in the blanks, or whatever is the category MCQ, so we can easily award the marks on the basis of uh, correct answers by matching the correct answer with the student response. But when we are evaluating performance or product based testing we are doing, so it's not that easy to assign the scores. So we need to assign scores or marks based on some guidelines. So that guideline, formal guideline, is rubric. Right? So we have to use. It's recommended to use rubric when we are evaluating students during the performance or product based testing. And it's rubrics is one of the very important tool from the OB, outcome based education point of view also, that we need to uh, develop rubrics, so that OB also recommends that. That's why this OB is this rubrics is very important when we consider in context of OBE or NBA accreditation. So basically, when we are going for the design of assessment methods, so first thing is we must be very clear that what learning outcomes or the course outcomes we want to assess, and then according to that we should have assessment methods, and then from assessment methods we assign the scores to the students, which are used for further evaluation and analysis. Right? So let's come to the rubric. So there are various kinds of assessment methods. So in this first part, I will be mainly explaining the rubric. In the second part, so second mostly used this assessment technique is the question paper. So I will be discussing that how to develop a good question paper. So this rubrics is a flexible tool used by an instructor to assess student work. So it provides some kinds of guidelines which are used to award the scores to students, which are used to further evaluate their performance. And in this, we have detailed descriptions of performance levels. So using the guidelines, we assign some performance levels to the students, and how to assign those performance levels. So those detailed descriptions of performance levels and those guidelines are there. So it is a kind of tool which outlines some type of criteria for grading and describe how a student might meet that criteria. So main purpose of the rubrics is to assess the learning outcomes that are skill based. So we can design rubric for any kind of assessment of learning outcome. So whether the students are doing something in a realistic setting, like where we want to evaluate use of equipment, oral communication, their work habits, or their behavior in the lab when they are doing something, physical skills. So, or whether we are interested in evaluating the product, which is a result of students' work, like it is a project or written essay, any kind of reports, so those kind of things. Even we can use the rubrics to evaluate teamworks and individual contribution to group tasks. So we can design a rubric for any kind of these uh, activities related to our learning outcomes. So there are two broad categories of the rubrics. So depending upon different aspects of their composition, so we can classify rubrics as holistic and analytic rubrics. So when we are classifying whether the rubric treats the criteria one at a time or together. So when based on this particular principle, we can have holistic rubric or analytic rubric. Similarly, whether we are using a generic rubric or a very task specific rubric, so based on that, we can have a generic rubric or task specific rubric. So these are the two different categories of rubrics based on which we can classify further subtypes. So we'll go through all these one by one. So holistic rubrics is of this kind, that we have to assign, say, a grade. So we are interested in matching an entire piece of student work to a single description on the scale. So we have different scales, or we can have different grades, and we want to award a particular grade to the student work. And in the second column, so description is there, that how that grade will be awarded. So what are the basically expectations to award that grade. So if the student is matching the corresponding expectations, then we'll award that particular grade, right? So these descriptions basically will describe that what would an assignment that earned an A will look like, versus on the that earned a B. So means if we are awarding the highest grade, so then how that highest grade is different from the grade B, how that expectation is different, and so on. So holistic rubrics gives a whole picture description of what is expected for an assignment. So based on the description, evaluator will assign a single score. Usually, it may be say 1 to 4 or 1 to 6, or it can be grades like A, B, C, D, or it can be some say adjectives like excellent, very good, goods. That type of grades or classification may be there. So in holistic rubric, we can say that it is a fairly general rubric, and but it is easy to use and it is easy to create. So this is one example of the holistic rubric. We can see that this is a rubric which can be used to evaluate or assess the written communication. So that written communication may be as a report or a thesis or some kind of say other particular paper which the student submits after attempting that. Okay. So here, how many grades are there? We can see on the screen that there are 4 grades: above average, sufficient, developing, needs improvement, or it can be A, B, C, D, or it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Okay. So now, above average. So you can see the description. So when the student will be awarded above average, so that description is there. So the audience is able to easily identify the focus of the work and is engaged by its clear focus and relevant details. Second line is information is presented logically and naturally. Third is there are no more than two mechanical errors or misspelled words to distract the reader. Right. So there are three statements. So if the student work is matching with these three statements, then the above average grade will be assigned. Otherwise, if there is not matching with this, then second description will be checked. So if the student work matches with the second description, then sufficient grade will be assigned, and so on. Right. So this is how we can use this holistic rubric for assigning grades to the students. Right. Or these grades can be further converted to marks or scores. So now you can see that there are three statements. And if we analyze these statements, we can see that these three statements refer to three different parameters, right? So the first statement is related to the basically organization of the particular that report. Second is related to the flow of the particular report, and third is related to the grammatical accuracy, right? So three different parameters are checked in a single description. Okay, so all the descriptions of different grades, so all these descriptions are referring to these three different parameters, right? Okay, then this is another example. So where in addition to these grades, so these adjectives are there, even a marks range is there, that A grade corresponds to 90 to 100, similar to that, right? So similarly, we can find a number of examples of holistic rubrics from the different sources for our reference. Okay, so what are the advantages of holistic rubrics? So these are quick way to provide an overall evaluation. So we'll just take the student work and then we'll try to match that student work with the single description, and we'll award the grade based on that matching of the student work with the description. So it will save time in developing. So these savings which I have highlighted here, so these savings are relative with respect to the second type. So you may be appreciating these statements more when you go through the second type of this rubrics, which is analytic. So what you can remember that what we have written here, that when we are designing, it will save time in developing, as well as it will save time by minimizing the number of decisions which the instructor has to make. For example, if we are using this rubric, then for a report, how many decisions an instructor has to make, an evaluator has to make. So evaluator has to make one decision. That means based on the description, whether student work matches with the above average or sufficient, developing, needs improvement, only one decision is required to award the final grade to the report or this written communication, whatever we are evaluating, right? But we'll see that in the second type, we need to take more decisions. So that's why here it is written that it saves times by minimizing the number of decisions instructor has to make, right? But in this case, it can be applied consistently by trained instructors, which will increase its reliability. So somewhat experience in applying the rubrics or evaluation is required to have the consistency when we are using this kind of rubric. So advantages we have seen, now disadvantages. So it's very general. It does not provide specific feedback for improvement. So in that again refer to this example of the rubric. Say student is getting sufficient grade. Student is has not been awarded above average. All right. So well, the student will be able to know what is his limitation or drawback, where the student is lagging, because there are three parameters referring to three different statements. So if the sufficient grade is awarded, student will not be able to get specific feedback whether he is lagging from the first point of first line statement, or there are second, say, problem of flow, or there are more grammatical errors. So if we are just awarding the sufficient grade, so we'll not be giving the specific feedback, right? Another thing is if the student is say student work is matching with two statements out of three. Say student work is matching with the description of above average, but for the two statements out of three. So first two statements are, say, student work is satisfying, but student work is not satisfying the last statement. That means there are more than two grammatical errors. So whether as a evaluator will assign the above average grade or will go to the sufficient. Okay, so that will be a dilemma because out of three, student work is satisfying two, right? So, but it is not satisfying three. So, if we are avoiding above average, that means it again we are giving some grade which is not having that matching with the student work. Similarly, if we are avoiding say sufficient, then again uh, there will be in our mind that although one part is not met, so other two parts are met. So there will be always some many times there will be some confusion or difficulty in selecting the best single description when the student work is at varying levels, spanning the criteria points. So these are the major disadvantages or the limitations of this kind of holistic rubric, right? So then when to use this kind of rubric? So we can use this kind of rubric when there is no single correct answer or response to a task. Like for example, we are evaluating a creative work. So we can use this kind of rubric. Or when the focus is on overall evaluation. So we are not interested in specific feedback. For example, at the end of the term or at the end of the particular year when we are just interested in summative assessment. So this kind of holistic rubric may be useful. Or when there are a very large number of students which we need to assess, then again this holistic rubrics will save time. So these are some of the scenarios where this kind of rubrics may be useful. Right? So now going towards the second type. So second type is called analytic rubric or it is called descriptive rubric. Right. So when we say rubric, so most of the time we refer to this rubric. So when we say rubric, so by default meaning we want to refer to this kind of rubric. So where we have a kind of grid. So it has three key features. One is criteria. We can see on the leftmost column. So there are criteria 1, criteria 2, 3, 4. Then there are performance ratings written as excellent, good, needs improvement, unsatisfactory, or it can be called as grades ABCD, or say 1, 2, 3, 4 scale can be there. And then we are having performance descriptions for every criteria. There will be performance description with respect to every performance level, right? So that will be there. So what we mean by criteria? So criteria basically will show the actual expectations for the assignment or for the activity. So for evaluating every assignment, we have some intended standards or some parameters which we want to check in the assignment. Here means not that literal meaning of assignment. So here basically we want to refer to the any activity which we are giving to the student, whether it can be a project or any other kind of assignment. So it's a general term which we are using. So we'll see that what are actual expectations for that particular activity, student activity, student works, and then we'll list the various basically intended characteristics, and those characteristics will be constituting the criteria points. And each of the criteria will be scored individually in case of analytic rubric. Performance ratings are basically are there to indicate that how the students are performing with respect to each criteria. So it can be like language excellent, good, poor, or it can be point based or grade. So those things can be there. Performance descriptions basically describe that how a student earns a particular performance rating with respect to a selected criteria. So we can say that these describe the traits or the actual meaning for particular grade with respect to a chosen criteria. So generally, it is the bulkiest part of the rubric when we refer to a rubric for the design of the rubric or when we are going to apply the rubric. So performance descriptions are the very important part, but it is the bulkiest part also. So let's see one example. So again, say we now want to evaluate that same written communication which we considered earlier. So that final paper or final report we want to evaluate now with the analytic rubric. So in the last description, we have seen that three parameters were considered in a single description. So clarity, organization, and mechanics. Now we are separating those three parameters into three different criterions points. So Criterion 1 is clarity, criterion 2 is organization, sequencing, criterion 3 is mechanics, right? So now we'll be awarding these grades: needs improvement, developing sufficient, above average, with respect to each criterion points. First, we'll see that whether student work matches with the above average grade for clarity. If it is matches, then we'll award above average with respect to clarity. Then we'll go to the second criteria, and we'll check whether sequencing is as per the above average. So now, how to check whether sequencing or clarity is above average? For that, we need performance description. So we refer to the performance description with respect to that criterion and for each performance level, like above average. So it will be called above average when this performance description is matched by the student work, right? So the central purpose of the student work is clear, and sporting ideas are always well focused, details are relevant, and enrich the work. So first we'll evaluate with these descriptions based on clarity, right? Similarly, then we'll go to the second criterion point. Then we'll again evaluate the student work with respect to this criterion, organization criterion, and again we'll check whether student is earning above average or sufficient, developing, whatever performance description is best satisfying the student work. So that will be awarded, irrespective whether he got above average in the previous or whether he got the less than above average in the previous. So all three these criterion points will be evaluated independently. Then for the final evaluation, these evaluations of individual these criterions will be combined, right? So now, how many decisions will be required to be made by the evaluator in this case? So we are using three criterion points, right? So there will be three decisions, right? So first decision will be whether student will be getting this above average grade or not with respect to clarity, or what grade student will get with respect to clarity criterion. Then second decision will be grade with respect to organization. Then similarly, third grade decision will be with respect to this grammatical error type of criterion. So if we had say four criterion points, then number of decisions required will be four, right? So here, instead of one decision in holistic kind of rubric, earlier kind of rubric, so there will be number of decisions required will be equal to the number of criterion points. So that's why we have written there in the advantages that number of decisions required is less in case of holistic, right? Okay, so we will be using these performance descriptions to award the grades. Okay, so now, do you agree with me about these advantages of analytic rubrics? So first is that it provides useful feedback on areas of strength and weaknesses, or it provides judgment on each criterion, right? So because we are evaluating each criterion separately, so if the student is getting highest possible grade in that, that means that is his or her strength. If a criterion is not awarded as the highest grade, so that means that is there is weakness of the student. So we are giving feedback on the specific areas of strength and weakness, which was not there in case of holistic rubric, right? Criterions can be weighted to reflect the relative importance of each dimension. So here we can see that we have used these 1, 2, 3, 4 as the scale for all the criterions. So now say we want to give more weightage to, we want to finally convert these scale points to marks, right? So if we converting these 1, 2, 3, 4, which we are awarding from this point to into marks, then we can multiply these scale points with different constants to give them more weightage. Like say we are multiplying, we want to give more weightage to say clarity, so then we'll multiply the scale points by say 2. So that will be double clarity, double weightage with respect to clarity if we are multiplying other scale points by 1. Right. So that way we can give more weightage to a particular criterion, or such kind of design of the rubrics may be done. This particular analytic rubric provide the instructor with the ability to grade objectively and consistently, because uh, every student work will be evaluated on different criterion. So there will be no confusion in the mind of instructor when the instructor is awarding the grades, because in earlier case there was problem of matching of student work when the work was at varying levels of the that criterion points. So it gives students clear ideas about how an assignment will be graded. So if we share this rubric with the students before they attempt the assignment, so then they will be knowing that they will be getting the highest grades if they will be able to satisfy the performance descriptions, right? So that will give the clear idea to the students about the and their expectations from the students, so they will try to meet those expectations, right? So when they are clear that how the student work will be graded, so we based on these points we can say that this provides more usable data than holistic rubric, because it provides more detailed information, more detailed feedback, and provides other advantages like scoring objectively and consistently. What are the disadvantages or limitations? So it will take more time to create and use than a holistic rubric, because we have to make more number of decisions while designing. We have to write more performance descriptions. So it will take more time to create as well as use. And another thing is that unless each point for each criterion is well defined, raters or evaluators may not arrive at the same score. So one of the major expectation or the characteristic of rubrics evaluation is that if the different instructors are using the same rubric for evaluating the student work, the scores awarded to the student work should remain consistent. So there should not be basically subjectivity, right? So that is the one of the major requirement. That's why we are going for the rubrics, that subjectivity element or the consistency in the evaluation should be there. But if while writing the performance descriptions, if those descriptions are not well written, well defined, then there may be misunderstanding of those expectations by different evaluators, and they may not arrive at the same score, especially if our rubrics is a very large or very bulky rubric. And sometimes, because there are so many performance descriptions, although we share the rubrics with the students, they skip the performance description, they do not study the performance description, so that way they will not be aware of what are the expectations. So these are some of the limitations or the disadvantages of analytic rubrics. Okay, now coming to the second category of generic or task specific rubric. So generic rubric means, so we are talking of that rubrics which can be used across different tasks and can be used for similar tasks or performance without any modification. Or then we say that it is a generic rubric. For example, say we are having a rubric which can be used to evaluate or assess all communication related tasks or problem solving tasks. So we will say that it is a generic rubric. So it will provide a big picture approach. So their performance descriptions or the elements of the rubrics will be slightly generic in nature, general in nature. So there can be element of subjectivity when this kind of rubrics is used. Task specific, as the name suggests, so it assesses a specific task. So it is used to evaluate a particular task. So it is giving us a more focused approach of assessment. So when we are interested to know whether students are aware of particular facts or particular equations, methods, or particular, we want to test a particular uh, activity, we want to check the some characteristics of activity, so we can design our rubrics accordingly, and we can have a task specific rubric, right? Okay, so these are the reasons why we should use the rubric. So based on the previous slides, so we can write these points, and that it gives us a chance to make our assessment more transparent. So student will be able to understand that how their assignments or how their work is evaluated. So they are aware of the expectations. So this brings in more transparency in the system. Consistency will be there because everything will be evaluated based on the already defined descriptions. So it will be the resulting in consistent results for even for different sections. Sometimes it happens that there are a number of sections and for the same subject or for the same activity, and different teachers are evaluating different sections. So many times the students have this grudge that some teachers are lenient in awarding the marks, some teachers are strict. Okay, so what if we are using this rubrics? So that kind of subjectivity or that kind of grudge may not be there in the mind of students, and they will be having a sense of that instructor is not biased, or the instructor is not basically having some grudge against any of the students. So it will establish objectivity. It will streamline the process of grading and make grading more efficient, so resulting in efficiency in the system. If we allow students to have the access to rubrics before they submit their work, so then they can self-assess their activities, and or they can do peer assessment before submitting the work, so they will be more aware of the status of their activity, or the basically how they are doing with respect to the established guidelines. So if we are using the rubrics in conjunction with formative assessments, then it will help us in tracking the student improvement, and it will also help students to think critically by linking assignments with the expectations, by linking assignment with the learning objectives. So it will help the students to basically be more focused. So these are some of the reasons that why we should use the rubrics. So okay, before moving further, because there are two more tools which are similar to rubrics, checklist, and rating scale. So I would like to ask the participants: is there any query related to the slides which I have covered? So then we can spend a minute or two on the discussion before I move further. Any query from online participants related to the slides which I have just covered? Okay. Offline participants, any query?
But in future, by using this holistic, not holistic, by using this analytic rubric, even AI can be developed that can be used to check subjective
Yeah,
exams.
so it can be by the human or by the machine. So rubrics can be used there.
That way, question papers can be objective and transparent.
Transparent. Even when we are using, say, OMR sheets,
Yes,
what we are doing, so we are using technology
yes.
to evaluate the marks. So basically, that is not maybe rubrics, but that is how we are matching the correct answer with the answer given by the students. So even further, with the help of the rubrics, we can go for subjective types of evaluations also. Okay, so if there is no query at this point, let's move further. So next is there are two more tools related to this: rubrics, checklist, and rating scales. So checklist or rating scale are different from the rubric. Many times we can use these checklists or rating scales. These are easy to use than the rubrics, or they saves time when we use a checklist or a rubric. Even why we use this, sometimes there are assignments are so simple that using a rubric may not be worth it, so we can use a checklist or rating scale. Or even sometimes it may be too difficult to design a rubric, and the outcome may not be that required based on the rubric which we are doing. So how these are different? So they lack the detailed performance description which are present in the rubric. So that is the major difference, that detailed performance descriptions are not there in these checklists or rating scales. Right. So here you can see checklist. So checklist may be a kind of tool where we are interested in say selecting one answer out of two. Say whether student have has completed an initial post of 200 words. Okay, say on the basis of this, whether the student has posted this particular requirement, then answer will be yes or no. So based on yes or no, say we are interested in awarding the marks, so then there is no need of the rubrics. We are just checking whether the student has posted a post. Similarly, there can be, say, another types of questions. So if the required evaluation is either yes or no, or basically we are selecting two of the possibilities, then we can have a checklist, or two, or maybe sometimes three, or like that thing. So so they are very useful when, because these provides guidelines about the expectations. So if we are sharing checklist with the student, again the student will be aware of the some expectations, and it provides a quick way of providing grades. Rating scale is of this kind. So in checklist we are providing just grade based on yes or no, but in this rating scales we have certain parameters. So like in rubric we have criterion points parameters, so similar parameters are there in the rating scales. And there are performance levels, like here you can see there are three performance levels are shown here: below expectation, meets expectation, exceed expectation. And teacher has to award one particular performance level based on the criterion point. So there is no performance description, right? So only criterion points and the performance levels are given. Then it is left to the evaluator, that how evaluator matches the student work with a particular expectation based on that criteria. Right. So it can be tricky for some activities. So, but it is also useful. So how it will be converted into rubric? So for the same table, so if we include performance descriptions, then it will become the rubrics. So if performance descriptions are not given, then it is a rating scale. Right? So this is the difference between rating scale and rubric. Okay, now let's quickly go through the steps which are used to create a rubric. So these are the 6 steps. So I will be describing these steps one by one. So first is decide the purpose. So for what purpose we are creating a rubric, so that needs to be decided whether we want to design a generic rubric or task specific rubric. That need to be decided. So once it is decided, then we move to the second step. So whether we want to design a holistic rubric or analytic rubric, that need to be selected. What format will be there, that need to be decided. And for deciding that, we may refer to the advantages and disadvantages of each type of rubric. Right? And then once we have decided the type and format of the rubrics, so it is suggested in literature that we should look at models of that type of rubrics which we want to create. So there may be some already existing rubrics related to that particular activity, so that can be referred, like we do the literature review when we are formulating any problem. So that way we can look at the rubrics. So it will help help the designer, if the designer has not created a rubric before, or a rubric is to be created for a new kind of assignment, then it will be helpful. Similarly, we can discuss with colleagues about the particular rubric requirements, that what should be included in the rubric, what should be performance levels. So we can discuss with rubrics and get their feedback about that assignment evaluation. Or we can find some rubrics online, and then we can customize those rubrics or adapt those rubrics for our particular work. For example, there is this website of American Association of Colleges and Universities. So this AACU website has rubrics for different topics, such as written and oral communication, critical thinking, creative thinking. So different kinds of these rubrics are there, which can be referred to while designing our own rubrics. So now, after looking to the reference rubrics, so now we are actually going towards the development of our rubric. So first thing is that we need to define the criteria. So what parameters we'll be having. So leftmost column, which the table which we have seen. So these steps are basically with respect to analytic rubric design, right? So because holistic rubric we can consider as a special case of analytic rubric. So where we are combining various uh, performance descriptions into single description, right?
Sir, may I disturb you, please?
Yes, please.
Sir, can you please go back to the step one slide? This is the
Step,
step four. Step
yes,
one.
yes, please. This is the step one, that what for what purpose, basically based on our learning outcome, based on our activity, what purpose is there to design the rubric, so that we need to decide in the first step. So basically
Yes.
first two steps are very, we can say, generic, and if you find refer to the literature, there may be, these steps are not basically, we can say, the only steps. So some steps may be merged in if you refer to the literatures, right? So first and second step easily may be merged. Okay? So
Yes.
basically, these are just those steps where we start thinking about the rubrics.
Yes, sir, got it.
Any specific query related to step one?
No, no. I just wanted to that by which ways we can go to start deciding creating of rubrics.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So this was a step two, and this was a step three, and this is a step four, where we need to finalize our criterion points. So what are criterion points? Basically those parameters or characteristics based on which we'll be evaluating a student work. So here refer to this first bullet point, which is very important. What is the student expected to produce, right? So our expectations will be reflected in the criterions. And second point is again, second line is again very important in continuation to first. So what are the common expectations across instructors? So when we are writing our criterion points, so we should write expectations which are commonly suggested or commonly observed by the various instructors. So we should not be very specific while writing the expectations. So we should not write expectations or the those characteristics which are very, we can say, particular to the thinking of a say instructor, which are not commonly expected. So it is suggested that we should write those expectations, and that which will be suggested by uh, various instructors, so that the student, our rubrics is actually reflecting the requirements of that particular study or the particular work. And based on the expectations, we need to determine what are the skills or abilities which are required to be assessed based on our expectations. So those skills and abilities will now become the key criterion points. So we'll make the list of those criterion points, and then we'll see whether there is any overlapping. So if there is overlapping, then we can combine, or if some criterion points are not very clear or concise, then we can do revision of those points, right? So we have to make the list of criterion. So we have to finalize that list. So that will basically constitute the leftmost column. So we can uh, refer to these the points, like criterion should be measurable. So we should avoid using subjective or vague criterion such as interesting, creative. So we cannot easily evaluate that this work is interesting at different levels, right? So we should outline some objective indicators that would fall under different categories, right? Similarly, uh, we have to consider while deciding these criteria again that what are the learning outcomes which will be assessed using that rubric. So we have to relate our parameters with the learning outcomes also. So those learning outcomes may be at the department level or program level or course level, depending upon our requirement. So all these points, criterion points, will form the leftmost column of the grid. So once we have the leftmost column of the grid of that analytic scale, that analytic rubric, so then we are going to decide the top those column headings. So top row basically. So how many performance rating levels will be there? How many grades will be there? A, B, C, D. Whether we are getting 4 grades, 5 grades, 6 grades. So common practice is to have up to like 4 to 6 grades. But depending on our requirement, we can have even 3 grades like that. So we need to decide what scale we'll be using, whether we will be using some numerical categories like 1, 2, 3, 4, or we want to use some, say, other kinds of performance rate level indicators. So all these things will be required to be decided. So if we are want to assign the marks, so how those marks will be assigned, points will be assigned to student work using those rubrics, right? So these are some of the common examples of achievement levels. So we can have like these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, or we can have these short descriptions like unacceptable, marginal, proficient, distinguished, all those things. So we can have any type of performance rating levels which are best suitable to our local scenario. Then once we have this, then finally we need to write the performance description. So finally, once we have the leftmost column and top row, so then we need to write a description for each cell. So for each criteria with respect to each performance level, we need to write the descriptions. So it's suggested in literature that we should begin by describing the highest level of performance first, and then we should move towards the second highest to lowest. And when we are using these performance, when we are writing or when we are having these performance descriptions, so there should be words which indicate some kind of levels of performance. Like we can start from presence and we can end at the absence, or we can move from complete to incomplete. So there should be a flow basically when we move from highest to lowest level. We can use some specific languages if we are going for designing of, say, very task specific kind of rubric. So that will increase the chance that multiple faculty members will apply the rubric in a similar manner. If some certain terms are there for particular subject, so that will be there. Or we can use sample papers of high, mid, and low performers to help the designer, the evaluator who is going to write the performance description. So they will be able to write those performance descriptions, which will be best describing the highest level or the middle levels or the low levels using the performance sheets or the performance of the students. Once we have written, so we should discuss it with the colleagues or students to check for clarity. And then before finalizing, we should try out on a few students with several raters. So different teachers may be given the same rubric to apply on different students, and then we can see that whether it is giving consistent scores or not. Okay, so these were the steps for designing the rubrics. So once we have designed the rubric, so it is used for evaluating the students, assessing the students. So it is suggested that we should also evaluate rubrics periodically. So once we have designed the rubrics, we should evaluate the rubrics also, whether it is giving the desired results, whether the assessment which we are getting, so that is as per the desired instructional goals or objectives. Okay, so whether it is the most appropriate tool for the assessment task. So rubric should be evaluated periodically, and if there is any shortcoming is detected, so we can easily modify the rubric. So it is not like that we cannot modify. So it is a very flexible tool, so it can be modified. So there are some of these questions which can be used to evaluate the rubrics. So does the rubric relate to the outcomes being measured? Does it cover the important criteria for student performance? Does the top end of the rubrics reflect excellence? So this list of questions may be long than this. Just these are the indicative questions. Especially, I will ask all the participants to see this third question. So does the top end of the rubric reflect excellence? Because when we are giving grades, the highest grade performance description will be a guideline for the student that they will try to match that particular guideline. So whether the highest guideline which we are writing, highest performance description with respect to criterion point, so that is really reflecting excellence, so that we should keep in mind. Again, that excellence should be achievable within that scenario which we are providing to the student. So all these things can be used. These questions can be used to evaluate the rubric. and if there is any problem, so we can modify the rubric. So again, these are some of the points which we can keep in mind while using the rubric, so that the rubric's evaluation is effective. So this is basically, we can see the summary of all those slides which I have just described. So, but while keeping these points in mind, so it will help in using the rubrics effectively. Like, first is that we can share the rubrics with the students before they start work. So it will contribute to their learning as they complete the work. So we should also train the students to use rubrics so that they can self-assess their work, or they can use the rubrics for peer assessment. We can train the students in class, or while we are designing the rubrics, we can involve the students in developing the rubrics, so that will help the students to understand the rubric. And if we have to write some feedback statements, then we should write those feedbacks in the terms which we have used in the rubric. So then it will indicate the correlation between the feedback assessment and the rubric terminology. And there is a general, we can say, query from the participants that if we are using analytic rubric, so it will be too time consuming. So to save the time while assessing, so we can use technology, ICT tools. So there are many ICT tools which are the free, in addition to the paid tools like RubyStar, iRubric. So these are the tools which can be easily used. So these are mostly free online tools. So these can be used to develop the rubric, or even they can be used to apply the rubric, share the rubrics. Similarly, we can use ChatGPT for developing our rubrics, for developing our performance description. So we can use technology for saving our time. So we can not just use technology to replace our efforts, but to help in saving times. We can use certain technical tools. Right. So with this, I am concluding this particular rubrics part. And this question I will be giving for the after lunch session, because after lunch session is our activity session. So I will be again sharing this slide with all of you for the practice session. So in that session, you will be required to develop a rubric for a particular task. So that will be basically decided by you only. So what kind of task you want to select, and you will have the right learning outcome, or you may be having learning outcome for that. Then you have to develop the rubric. So this is basically work which we'll be doing in the second session, after lunch session. Right? So to conclude this particular rubrics part, so we can have these points, that rubrics is a flexible tool that can be used to measure student learning related activities, specifically related to learning outcomes. So we can have objective and consistent assessment with the help of these rubrics. If we're using the rubrics, so it will provide clarity of expectations to the students. It will provide useful feedback for improvement, and it will again give us consistency in documentation. And we have gone through certain design steps. So those are the design steps which can be followed to develop a good rubric, effective rubric. So with this, first part is over. These are some of the references which you can refer to, and I'm open to questions related to this rubrics part. If there are any questions, then you can ask before I move to the second part.